The Honda CBR1100 Blackbird, everybody. This is the 2002 model, and man, what a privilege it is to have this motorcycle join our ever-growing fleet. This motorcycle I got for very cheap, and there is a reason for that, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. But to be honest with you, just looking at the bike from an aesthetics point of view, she is very pretty, don't you think? Very modern design for its age, considering this came out 22 years ago, although Honda do seem to have a pretty decent track record when it comes to the looks of their motorcycles. One other thing I do like about this motorcycle is the fact that it's got a center stand, quite an underrated feature these days if you ask me, considering how many scenarios something like that can be useful. So the previous owner was trying to convert this bike into a more comfy sport touring riding experience. The ride height has been lowered a little bit on the rear shock. It did have some handlebar risers here, and it does have heated grips as well, not to mention the top box and pannier rack. But for the most part, as far as I'm aware, this bike is totally original. So everybody, today, as usual, we're going to take the CBR1100 Blackbird out for a ride. We're going to be discussing what the bike is like to ride from a rider's perspective, how the performance feels, what the power output is like, and whether or not it's worth you picking up one of these old bikes. So let's go ahead and have a little listen to the soundtrack of this oldie but goodie of a motorcycle. It does come with this immobilizer system as well. The bike has been ridden around a little bit, so she is warm. Here we go. Starts that first time. Is a Honda after all. Yeah, she sounds good considering it's a stock exhaust, don't you think? Now, I don't want to talk too much about the ergonomics of this motorcycle because it has been adjusted on that rear shock. It has been lowered a little bit. I don't think that would impact the feel of the bike too much, to be honest with you. But yeah, the previous owner was slightly shorter than I am, but I'm able to get on this bike fairly comfortably anyway. So yeah, I mean, I don't think this is a tall bike stock, to be honest with you, but I am going to try and put it back to stock height if I can, if I've got the tools. But yeah, honestly, I've had this bike for 5 days now, 4 or 5 days, and well, I've been quite impressed with this bike. One thing that you might hear is a little bit of chain rattle. That's one thing that I've discovered recently. I think the timing chain tensioner probably needs replacing on this bike. Let's go down a gear, see if you can hear it. Okay, it's louder when it's cold. But yeah, it seems to have quietened down a little bit, but it does get quite loud every once in a while. And the dashboard as well, it does remind me of my Honda Civic in some way. But sad, isn't it, to see completely closed up like that. It would just be so nice to ride past the garage, or the dealer rather, and seeing just all the bikes out the front. Oh man, that's so sad. Hopefully they can either get back on their feet or a buyer can bring them back. I don't know, we'll see how that goes. But anyway, yeah, back to the Blackbird. Yeah, the dashboard, it does resemble a car's dashboard in a lot of ways, you know. It's okay, it's fit for purpose. It does look a little bit dated these days, but yeah, for the most part I do like the dashboard. It is quite minimalist. The tachometer, of course, right in the middle there. Old-fashioned digi display, speedo, and you've got, yeah, your fuel, your temperature. This is engine temperature. It would have been nice if it did have outdoor temperature, but I know that's a fairly modern feature on sport touring bikes. But honestly, like, the first thing when I got on this bike that really shocked me was just how refined this bike feels to ride. It is a typical Honda in that regard, where everything feels on point. Despite the fact that it's 22 years old, everything still feels really good. And this bike as well feels incredibly nimble to ride. Because this is a big bike, despite the fact that it's only got a few hundred cc's more, or less than that actually, than a Fireblade. It's just, it feels so much bigger, it looks so much bigger, but in the cockpit, it's really nimble. I genuinely like this motorcycle, I like it an awful lot. So before we get into our 0 to 60 runs, let's go ahead and talk some specs. So this 2002 CBR1100 Super Blackbird has an 1137cc inline 4-cylinder engine which is producing 164 horsepower at the crank and 124 newton meters of torque, all whilst weighing in at a fairly heavy 254 kilograms wet. This is a heavy bike, but that is a lot of power for the time. Honestly, when this bike came out, this thing was the fastest motorcycle in the world. Despite the fact that it only had, yeah, literally, was it, what, 230 odd cc's of extra displacement over that generation of Fireblade? Maybe even less than that, less than 200cc. But yeah, the fact that they were able to generate so much power and so much torque out of this engine, this was a marvel of engineering back in its day. And you can still feel it right now as I'm riding it. You can still feel how good this motorcycle is. But let's see what this bike is like in a 0 to 60 run. Here we go. Woo! Okay, that was a very slow 0 to 60. This bike does produce its peak horsepower right at the top end of the rev range. There's no one behind me. Here we go. Woo! Oh, okay. Yeah, man, once this bike gets into those higher RPMs, she's quick. Let's try one more. Come on. Woo! Oh! Oh! My visor came smashing down. Yeah, this bike is quick. And I mean, I'm gonna try and refrain talking too much in terms of comparing this bike with the ZZR1400 in this video. We'll talk about that in another video later on. But this is a very quick motorcycle. I don't think it's as quick as the ZZR though in terms of the feel. I do want to try one more 0 to 60 here, this time with the visor down. Alright, here we go. Woo! Okay. Yeah. Very, very quick. The low end RPMs, there is torque, but there's not as much happening as I would like in the lower RPMs, if I'm being perfectly honest with you guys. But once you get past 5,000 RPM, this bike starts galloping. Oh, yeah, you really feel that ram air system kicking in when you get past a certain RPM. Oh god, this bike's good. Seriously quick, man. Yeah, it does have torque in the lower RPMs. I think it's just getting off the line. Because in these other gears, she has torque. Buckets of torque. I gotta try one more. There we go. Because I'm pretty sure this bike can do a 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds. So I've got to try and get at least close. Here we go. Woo! Okay. Yeah. I don't think that was quite 3 seconds. The launch just felt a little bit sluggish to me, but maybe I wasn't launching at high enough RPM. But you do have to be careful because these old bikes, they don't have any kind of wheelie control, any kind of traction control whatsoever to save you. So it does really come down to your wrist and how much you're willing to play with the throttle. But Honestly, whatever that time was, because of course I can only find out the time in post afterwards when I get home and I start editing the video. Whatever time that was, I'm sure that people can go quicker than that on this bike. Almost certainly. The gearing as well, it does feel fairly long. I mean, I was getting to 60 mile an hour there at about what, 8,000-9,000 RPM? I'm curious to see how quick, what speed I can get up to on this bike in just first gear. It's got to be close to 80, right? Gotta be. I mean, I've got to try and find out, but with this car here, maybe I can overtake them and find out. But all right, let's see. Okay, 75 mile an hour, about the same as the ZR. So yeah, not ridiculously long gearing. The fact that, yeah, you can get to 60 mile an hour in first gear or 70 mile an hour in first gear, that's really cool. That basically means that you're going to get out ahead of 99% of cars that are on the road. If you're filtering and you're getting off the line, you're trying to get off the line as quickly as you can. Well, I don't think you're going to have too many problems on this bike. But this bike loves cruising at high speeds. 70, 80, 90 mile an hour. This bike absolutely loves to cruise. I mean, look, we're doing less than 60 mile an hour, just under 3,000 RPM. Honestly. And the thing is, you can cruise with this bike as well. You can do some touring with this motorcycle. It is not the most uncomfortable thing in the world. Yes, it does have a slight lean forward to reach for the handlebars, but it's not like a super sport in that regard. I think my ZR 1400 from Kawasaki is a little bit more aggressive in its seating position, but yeah, what a motorcycle. They don't make bikes like this anymore. I mean, the only one you have left is the Hayabusa, the 3rd generation Hayabusa. Is the only one that you can buy from new now here in the UK because of stupid Euro emission standards. It's really annoying because these bikes, honestly, are some of the best you'll ever ride, despite their size, despite how weighty they are. For street riding, these things are arguably the peak of motorcycles. These bikes are so good for street riding. Buckets of torque when you want it, but you also have a load of horsepower as well on tap. Torque and horsepower, that's what these bikes offer the rider. Whereas when you look at 600s, and even to some extent, in fact, no, that is true these days, in the 1000cc class, they generate all their horsepower at 12, 13, 14,000 RPM. Below that, you have no power to play with whatsoever, no torque. So riding those types of bikes on the street is arguably pointless because you can never ever use the power, because by the time you reach the power band of those bikes, you're already doing 70, 80 mile an hour. It's stupid. I think to some extent that does not apply to the 600cc class. I actually think 600s, if you're looking at a super sport, 600s are arguably the best super sports right now for street riding, because yes, they do have those high RPMs, but they're not geared crazy long, so you are still able to hit that maximum horsepower without breaking every single speed limit in your country. So 600s to me make more sense than 1000s for street riding. These make even more sense for street riding. They're amazing. This Blackbird is honestly fantastic. This is Honda, man. Honda, they make some really good bikes, and I don't know about you guys, but I can tell that Honda put some serious effort and passion when designing and building these bikes. As I mentioned earlier, how refined these bikes feel. These bikes are second to none with a Suzuki Gixxer 1300, a Hayabusa, or a ZZR 1400 of today, these bikes still compete alongside the modern bikes. This one here is the fuel injected model, is a 2002. So I mean, I was having this discussion with my wife earlier because I've been taking her out quite a lot on this bike, because surprisingly enough, having a pillion is quite a pleasure actually on this bike. Oh yeah, when I was talking to her about it, I'm not sure if there's multiple generations of this bike or not, because you've got the carburetted version and you've got the fuel injected version. So I do wonder if the fuel injected model, this one here, feels just a little bit more refined than the likes of the carburetted ones. I don't think you're going to feel much difference, but personally I do prefer fuel injected bikes to carburetted ones. For me, the power delivery just seems more direct, and it seems the throttle response just seems better on a fuel injected motorcycle than on a carburetted one, in my humble experience. But still, I mean, if you are going to look at a carburetted one, I still think that a lot of what I'm saying in today's video is still going to apply. But yeah, these are fantastic motorcycles, but yeah, I don't know if you can call this generation like a 1.5, like a revision, if you like, I suppose. I don't know. I did see somewhere, I think in the owner's manual, that this was an 1100XX2. So maybe the 1100XX is the carburetted model. I don't know. But regardless, this thing is very, very good. Your foot pegs are quite. They're not high. They're not totally high, but they are a little bit higher than a touring bike and a little bit higher than a naked. So again, that adds to that whole sporty experience. And the fact that this bike came with heated grips as well, it came with the top box, the panniers and all that. Honestly, this was an absolute steal of a bike. So, well, how much did I pay for this bike? What are the issues with it? Alright, so I paid £1,700 for this Blackbird. That's it. And it has an MOT up until April next year. I'm filming this video in November, so it's got a fairly decent-ish MOT life as well. But I did realise today, because I got the V5 through today in the post, that this is a write-off motorcycle. So I think it's a Cat N, which would mean non-structural, but I don't know when it was written off. I don't know the extent of the damage. I don't know anything like that, so I'll probably do a vehicle history check on this bike at some point in the near future, and I'll share that information with you when I have it. But that is perhaps the biggest con behind this bike, is that yes, it was written off at some point or other and rebuilt. Usually I don't recommend buying a written off motorcycle, but the previous owner, I mean, they may have forgotten to disclose the information, but they didn't tell me that this bike had been written off. So yeah, naughty. But to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter, because this bike was still incredibly cheap, perhaps one of the cheapest Blackbirds that you can get here in the UK right now. Insurance for me was decent as well. So all in all, I paid £2,000 for the bike, insurance and tax. That is cheap. Seriously cheap. But to be honest with you, I don't really see this bike failing its next MOT. It's got decently sized, decent amounts of tread on the tyres. The chain looks in fairly good condition, and it's got an auto oiler as well for the chain. So the fork seals as well, they look good. The rear shock apparently was rebuilt a few years ago, so again, pretty good. But right, let's see what this bike's made of, shall we? Woohoo! I keep forgetting, man, this helmet. The visor doesn't like to stay up when I'm going over 70 mile an hour. Oh, I'll put my visor down for the next bit. Let's put the power down a little bit more. But yeah, this bike's got plenty of power. Buckets of power, faster than these BMWs here, a lot faster. All right, let's see what she can do. Okay. Well, not the most stable motorcycle at higher speeds, but very quick. Very quick. I mean, it wasn't on a dead straight. I was going around a bend there, testing it out. But yeah, this bike's top speed is like 180 mile an hour. I think it was the fastest motorcycle in the world in its day. I remember that much. But yeah, man, damn, this bike is very quick. It's quick, it's comfortable, the seat is nice and squishy, the suspension is in the wrong lane. The suspension is fairly soft, the way how the previous owner has it set up. I would like it a little bit harder. And unfortunately, yeah, it doesn't have any adjustment available here on the front forks as far as I'm aware. Maybe the adjustment is down at the bottom, I haven't checked. But yeah, what a package, man. This bike, absolute classic, legendary motorcycle. And well, you can tell that Honda were at their peak in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, when they were developing motorcycles like this. Suzuki and Kawasaki, they had to jump in on the action and try and make something better. And you know what, this bike, I think, comes seriously close to the likes of the Hayabusa and my ZZR1400, despite the fact that that one is a second generation ZZR1400. So it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison, but God, what a bike this is, you guys. Absolutely stunning. Shocking, in fact. Yeah, and honestly, the way how this bike, how you can lean it over, is so surprising to me. This bike will lean over so comfortably and confidently as well. It really does inspire confidence, this bike. Seriously, man. What an incredible motorcycle. Would I recommend this bike? 100% heck yeah. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend that it was a write-off, but to be honest with you, if it's one that is decent when you test ride it, then it could be an absolute bargain of a bike. Let's just have a little listen to that exhaust one last time. Here we go. My God, this bike is good, man. Oh, absolutely love it. Unfortunately, I haven't had the bike long enough yet to comment on the fuel efficiency of the bike, because yes, if you did want to take this bike on some tours, then that is a bit of information that you probably want to know, but we'll do a dedicated video about that in the near future. But thank you ever so much for joining us on today's ride review, everybody. I hope that it has helped you out, and as always, don't forget to go ahead, leave that like, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss any more of our content on the Honda CBR1100 Super Blackbird, and we will catch you all in the next video. Take care, ride safe.